Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Good evening, all. Welcome to Coquitlam City Council Chambers. We have the delight tonight of having wonderful snow outside, and therefore so nice to have you inside where it isn't snowing. Thank you for those of you who braved it through some pretty unusual weather outside on the roads. All of Council welcomes you here tonight. We'll begin with one group here, and I did want to comment that some young students all the way from Banting, and we have people from Anmore that have arrived here. But the person that arrived last was the person that has done like 87 trips up and down the Coquitlam Crunch, night and day, all overnight. And Guy, good to have you here. He probably could have walked here faster than taking his car. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our first item this evening is indeed our first of three presentations, and it's here to recognize the Coquitlam Crunch 24-hour marathon. The Kang-Ho Hapkido Martial Arts School. I'd like to invite Guy Black and Diane Lee to come forward, who are here to make a presentation and show a video.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Guy Black, and I'm here with Mrs. Diane Lee and members of Coquitlam's Kang-Ho Hapkido Martial Arts Academy. Tonight, we'd like to speak to you about the Coquitlam Crunch 24-hour marathon. Our 24-hour adventure to challenge the Coquitlam Crunch Hill began on Friday, September 9th, 2016, and it would end on Saturday, September 10th. This was our contribution to the City of Coquitlam's 125th anniversary. We have a short video produced by Mr. Jeff Scott of Tri-City Television. It tells the story of our special event. So we'd like to show the video. Turn the volume up.
It's a better day for this, actually.
The sound was challenged when we got it, and we can't.
They played it when I brought it in today. They played it, and it was fine.
And the one below that?
Sorry, we don't have.
Nope. Turn it up quickly. Hurry. Okay, we're going to have to do this over. Yeah, I said this is a really important day. Thank you.
Speech I've seen you do. With all due respect.
And our next presentation is about kindness.
I said with all due respect.
We have everything cranked up.
Yeah.
like the photos that you provided. Just back up.
We have some photos of the 24-hour crunch. The event started with an official ceremony on Friday, September 9th at 1 p.m. It was attended by Alex Bell, who is the founder of the Coquitlam Crunch events, Carol Todd from the Amanda Todd Legacy Society, Rod McKinnon, MP, Linda Reamer, our MLA, Selena Robinson, MLA, Zoe Royer, City Councilor Port Moody, Mark from Finn Donnelly's office, Terry, and Rachel, and so that was the beginning of our event. And this is our support team, the Kang-Ho support team with two of our members, and one of them is here today. I can't get this to there. Totally not. Okay, another photo of our support tents. So this was crucial to us being able to crunch all night. And another shot of our support tent. And this is before the event. Finn Donnelly wasn't able to come down. He was in Ottawa, so he came down to support us a few days before. And he's an honorary member of the Kang-Ho Martial Arts Academy. And this again is another picture of the event about to take off. Linda Reamer and Terry present. And this is Friday late at night, possibly at midnight. And this is near the end of the event, completion of 20 laps of the Crunch Hill. And a few of our celebrity walkers. Terry?
O'Neill.
Yes. Ron McKinnon. Our mayor.
And Saber.
He actually came back. He was there. Mayor Stewart was there the first day, and then came back the next day. He showed up and brought his dog and walked with us quite a few times. So we really appreciate your support. Okay, so those are all the photos. Many people within the Tri-Cities helped us to succeed, and together we completed 20 laps of the Coquitlam Crunch Hill, 24-hour time period. This was actually a new record, so we set a world record, and we have applied to the Guinness Book of World Records. And with what we did, it was something important, and what we did became part of the 125th anniversary of the City of Coquitlam. So we would like to thank the City of Coquitlam for their support, and we'd like to ask Mayor Stewart and Councillor O'Neill to come forward. New Jersey first. On behalf of the Coquitlam's Kang-Ho Hapkido Martial Arts Academy, we'd like to present the City of Coquitlam with the 24-hour Crunch Marathon shirt. We set a new world record, and we believe this shirt represents our team and the spirit of our community. Thank you. also have two certificates of merit for Councillor O'Neill and Mayor Stewart. This is on behalf of the martial arts. It has, yes. So that is it for our presentation tonight, and we hope that we did something special to be part of the 125th anniversary. Thank you.
I will tell you, and hats off to staff again, we did some amazing things during our 125th year. Yours was remarkable in its endurance, in its passion to get up that hill, to take the challenges that are before us and to rise to new heights. So on behalf of Council, thank you all very much for coming out. Kamsahamnida. It's good to have you here. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our second item is also a presentation, and it concerns real active caring. And we have students from Banting Middle School here to present on behalf of Real Active Caring Week.
So on behalf of Council, it's really a pleasure to welcome you, because sometimes we adults need instructions in caring.
Thank you so much. I'm Harriet Chang, and I'm coordinating this program. I didn't know if we were going to make it tonight with all the snow, and then when we finally did, our team was fragmented. We're missing some people, so they've just practiced and put something new together, and we were just thinking, okay, we've done this. And then Mayor Richard Stewart came up to us and told us that because of the weather, we were not going to be performing or presenting tonight. So I thought, oh, but that was just a mean trick, because we're back. So we're so thankful, so thank you. All right, I'm going to pass this over to these amazing leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, for letting us present today. First, we would like to introduce ourselves.
Hi, my name is Sonia Ferdowsi, and I'm in grade 8. Hi, my name is Roxana Ferdowsi, and I'm a grade 8 too. We are from Maple Creek Middle School.
Hi, I'm Annika, and I'm in grade 7.
Hi, I'm Shaisa, and I'm grade 8. Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I'm in grade 6.
Hi, I'm Janine, and I'm in grade 6.
Hi, I'm Ellen, and I'm in grade 6, and we all attend Banting Middle School.
RAC Real Acts of Caring Week is February 12th to the 18th, 2017 this year, and is doing something kind for another and not expecting anything back in return.
RAC began at Central Community School in December 2005 and has spread all over the Coquitlam School District and to other parts of British Columbia, including Surrey, Prince George, the Okanagan, and Agassiz. We now have a RAC club at Banting Middle School, and many students have joined. We want to experience how good it feels to be kind.
RAC promotes leadership, builds self-esteem, and expands on school connectedness. Studies have shown that teaching students to be kind reduces bullying behavior, decreases depression, and improves student learning.
Studies have also shown that students feel happier and experience a greater sense of belonging.
RAC is a win-win program which makes our community members feel happy, but more importantly, helps to build responsible, kind, and caring students, our future generation.
We have already designed our annual poster, and we are sending it out to every school in BC.
We have a group of students who are smart with social media and promote RAC info on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We have a RAC website which you can find if you Google Real Acts of Caring. On it, you can read over 75 different ways from which you can be involved in RAC too.
An example of a RAC is going to senior centers and giving out flowers and cookies and making people smile. An example of a rack that I've done is giving out Christmas cards to people. I feel that rack is important because it teaches people to be kind and how important kindness is. A simple smile can make someone's whole day better.
An example of a rack that I've done is volunteer at soup kitchens and organize a blanket drive.
An example of rack that I have done, I volunteer in libraries.
An example of a rack that I've done is that I've donated clothes and furniture to victims of a local fire.
An example of a rack that I've done is donating birthday money to different charities.
An example that I've done is every year I would go to the senior care center to entertain the seniors.
We also have a rack steering committee which is made up of parents, teachers, students, and former students.
We meet once a month in the evenings and we make important decisions about how to promote rack, real acts of caring.
We are always trying to raise money and support rack.
If you have any ideas as to how we can fundraise, please let us know.
We are asking for you to recognize RAC Week as well in your community, February 12 to the 18, 2017.
And now we have a rack for you.
For me? One. Oh, one. Oh, sorry. Okay. Thank you. Oh, boy. I'm going to take half. Thank you very much.
Would you like one?
Oh, my goodness. You guys are going to give, no, but you're giving us too much food. Thank you. Oh, boy. Sunflower cake. Oh. Places, there we go. Oh, no, don't feed those people over there. You'll ruin them.
Thank you for listening.
And letting us present today.
If you have any questions, we can answer them.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you very much for coming to see us. I know there's one member of council here who's quite well connected with the school district, and he has a comment or something. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. I well remember the first time that a group of students came here from Maple Creek Middle School and talked about the RAC project. And it was either on the first or second year that they presented to us a little token to remind us to pay it forward. And I keep that on my desk here to remind myself to be nice to my colleagues. It doesn't always work.
True.
And the thought hit me that really I should be giving you something back in return. I didn't have anything with me, so I just wrote a quick little poem, if I could share it with you guys. Here in this time of doom and gloom, emotions are so wearing, we find here signs of true uplift in these real acts of caring. So thank you, kids, for this we feel is quite the thing to do. Good luck to you on this big deal. It gives us hope anew. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
It's really beautiful.
Oh, don't encourage her. Councillor O'Neill is our city council poet. Yeah, or something.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. We will wrap this book up and we will go. Thank you.
My goodness, no, this is the most uplifting of the presentations we ever get, and I thank you very much for nothing against you, Guy. Sorry, that was, but this is amazing, and thank you so much, each of you. Thank you for coming out.
Right here.
Thank you so much.
Yes, perfect. And a typed up copy of that will undoubtedly arrive in your email. Carry it. There you go. If you can figure out how to do that in 100. Okay. Well, that was great. Now I'm wondering what kind of pastries MLA Linda Reamer brought. Mr. Clerk.
We're soon to find out. Our next item is our third presentation of the evening, and it's the designation of Bear Smart status for the city of Coquitlam. I'd like to invite Mr. Mike Badry and Murray Smith from the Conservation Officer Service, who are here to speak to this honor, and MLA Linda Reamer is here to present the city with a plaque recognizing our status.
I'm sorry, I don't have anything that's edible. I do have something that isn't. Good evening. As you know, I'm Linda Reamer. I'm the MLA for Anmore, Belcarra, Port Moody, and Coquitlam. And this evening I bring greetings on behalf of my friend and colleague, the Honourable Mary Polak, Minister of Environment, and our Provincial Conservation Service. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Murray Smith, who's in charge of our Lower Mainland, Sergeant Todd Hunter with Fraser North Zone, which includes Coquitlam and Maple Ridge, and then Mike Badry, who is our Wildlife Conflict Manager. And they have come quite a long distance this evening in order to present to you and to acknowledge your huge contributions. As we know, Coquitlam is the bear sighting capital of BC. In fact, in recent years, there have been over 1,200 black bear sightings, resulting in about 3,000 calls to both conservation and to staff here at the city. As you're all aware, it takes an entire community to reduce human-wildlife conflicts, and I know achieving Bear Smart status is no easy task. It requires communities to address the root causes of human-wildlife conflicts, as it's everyone's responsibility to ensure bears don't have to be destroyed for public safety reasons. To this end, the City of Coquitlam has shown its innovation and leadership by successfully implementing all 50 recommendations in the Bear Hazard Assessment, creating and actively enforcing a variety of Bear Smart bylaws, establishing a new city-wide wildlife-resistant solid waste management system, and developing and implementing an extensive outreach program designed to educate the public about how they can reduce bear conflicts. While this is a community effort, I would like to acknowledge one outstanding individual and celebrate his dedication and hard work as he's already entered retirement. And he was the founding urban wildlife coordinator for the City of Coquitlam. And Drake Stevens, as we know, went above and beyond to ensure the safety of both local residents and the animals themselves. As a former member of Coquitlam City Council, I've had the pleasure to work with staff on many occasions, especially on educating members of the public to coexist well with wildlife. By delivering hundreds of school workshops, staff have increased bear awareness in the community to ensure that humans learn to live harmoniously with urban wildlife. And I see this every day up on the Westwood Plateau where I live. We're already seeing the benefits of staff's hard work as human food attractants have declined in and around Coquitlam. The efforts and leadership of this city and its businesses and residents demonstrate how human bear conflicts can be reduced when a whole community participates in the process. It's my pleasure tonight to recognize the City of Coquitlam as a designated Bear Smart community. Coquitlam now joins Kamloops, Squamish, Lions Bay, Whistler, Port Alberni, Naramata, and New Denver by becoming the 8th official Bear Smart community in BC. I myself and the Conservation Officer Service, who are joining me here tonight, look forward to building on the successes that you've already achieved and continuing to help the City of Coquitlam serve as a model Bear Smart community. Joining me to say a few words tonight at the podium is Inspector Murray Smith.
Mayor Stewart and Council, thank you very much for this opportunity to recognize this moment. It's on behalf of the Conservation Officer Service. It's a significant. We've achieved a really great level of engagement with your community, and to meet this level, it's taken an immense amount of engagement from your staff and partnership from with the Conservation Officer Service. We're really happy to be part of this celebration, and this to meet this level of provincial recognition. It comes with a great deal of dedication from not only your citizens, but also your staff. I'd especially like to recognize Stephanie Warner and the Environmental Services Division team, because the partnership that we've established with that group has made terrific inroads in your community. And without that partnership, it would have to achieve this goal at this time would have been much tougher. So it's a great honor for us to participate and recognize what you've achieved here. And so looking forward to the future. Hopefully we'll be able to reduce our conflict with bears in this community. And we've taken and put Coquitlam, plunked it right in the middle of the best bear habitat in the world. And it's a challenge with a large community like Coquitlam. But I think the thing that is really important, you'll be a flagship for the rest of the province and every other community, especially in the Lower Mainland. You'll be a leader, and we'll use Coquitlam as an example for all the other communities in the Lower Mainland and British Columbia to say, here's what a large urban community has done, and hopefully we'll have more successes like Coquitlam in the province. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Inspector
Thank you.
Smith.
So in recognition of your outstanding achievement, we would like to present you. And Stephanie, would you like to come up as well? And we'll present both of you the plaque.
I will invite Stephanie and Julie and Karis up as well. Thank you. They, of course, are the part of the staff team that brings this to us. I didn't see those instructions on my phone.
Okay. Here we go.
Oh, I forgot mine. Okay, just silly, just silly. Yes. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Enough fun. Let's move on. More fun. Minutes of fun.
Minutes are always fun. I didn't want to be the one to say it, but thank you for that. Item 4 is the minutes of the public hearing held on Monday, January 23rd. Recommendation to approve.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor Marsden. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 5 is minutes of the regular council meeting, also held on Monday, January 23rd. Recommendation to approve.
Moved by Councillor Asmunsen, second by Councillor Marsden. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 6 is minutes of the Coquitlam River Aggregate Advisory Committee meeting of Wednesday, October 26th. Recommendation to receive.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Cirillo. Councillor Cirillo.
Had a quick question on the minutes. I guess this is the wrap-up minutes?
Yes.
This is the wrap-up minutes of the River Aggregate Advisory Committee. So wonderful work, it looks like, in all the summaries here. My question was about, on page 2 of the minutes, there was a request for local aggregate industry to be represented on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and the chair had said that he would raise this possibility, and I'm just wondering if there was any outcome from that.
Sorry, one more time.
Any outcome?
Page 2, second last paragraph. The chair undertook to raise the idea of having a representative from the local aggregate industry represented on our Economic Development Committee, and I was wondering how that turned out.
Okay. And I assume you're talking about the previous chair or the new chair? Or actually the previous chair.
Previous chair.
Yeah, okay.
The ultimate chair.
There's only one person.
Yes. The ultimate chair, which means no, I won't go there. Councillor O'Neill, did you have an answer?
Yes, thank you. These minutes relate to the wrap-up meeting that we had. And in wrapping up the meeting of the Coquitlam River Aggregate Advisory Committee, we talked about who would pick up the work, any residual work that was done by the committee. And I indeed made declarations that I would bring up the issue regarding having some sort of something about it on the on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and I believe I communicated that that interest to somebody, and I can't remember who. In terms of making sure that it was on the work plan of the Sustainability and Environmental Advisory Committee work plan, I had, for 2017, I had a very intimate discussion with the new chair of the Sustainability and Environmental Advisory Committee, that being myself, and indeed, it was here and there, a little Parliament of the Mind, 5149. It is on that is on the work plan for the Sustainability and Environmental Advisory Committee work plan for 2017, but I don't know the outcome of the possibility of getting some representation or at least some subject matter about the health of that industry on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. I don't know where that went. But if, in case it didn't go anywhere, at least this is another way of getting it aired, so maybe we do look into it. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Councillor O'Neill demonstrates that a democracy of one can work. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. As Chair of the Economic Development Advisory Committee, I will remind Council that we have some discussion with regards to the committee makeup. The motion was passed and invitations were sent out with regards to basically continuing with the participants from years past. Councillor Asmundson is the new Vice Chair this year. We are awaiting a formal report to come to Council with a recommendation for additional names, but in terms of a specific representative from the Aggregate Advisory Committee or from the aggregate industry, there was not a specific one. But I would note that certainly members within the aggregate industry in Coquitlam are well known to Council and do reach out and are very good at expressing their concerns and opportunities. I think as that's evidenced most recently by some discussions we had about the soil placement and removal bylaw that was just recently updated. So we're comfortable that from an economic development perspective, we can certainly reach out, and the individuals there would be proactive with it as well. And as I said, I think we'll see a report very shortly with regards to completing the final vacancy on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Thanks.
Anybody else? Question is the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 7 is minutes of the Sports Advisory Committee meeting held on Wednesday, November 16th. Recommendation to receive.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor Towner, the Chair and Vice Chair. Councillor Cirillo.
On page 3, I'm looking at the year-end committee review and feedback, and I note 2 strategies that are mentioned in the review and feedback, the senior strategy and also the updates on the tennis pickleball strategy. And I just wanted to understand if those were strategies that had been presented to this committee earlier in the year, or if there was just a discussion at the wrap-up that they wanted to see the senior strategy and the pickleball strategy next year.
Mr. Alloy.
Yes, thank you. I believe both of those have been, there was a discussion at Council when both of those were presented in committee, and that was to forward those for comments and review by the Sports Advisory Committee. And I believe those were already discussed there. Both of those projects are very close to being brought back to Council in their next stage. I have now reviewed the senior strategy and draft. So I believe both of those have been vetted already by the committee.
Sorry, I'm going to have to ask a quick question because I don't remember in my mind right now. So did the senior strategy and the tennis and pickleball strategy also come to the Universal Accessibility Committee? And they may have. I just don't remember. Have they already come?
I can't recall. I would have to go and check with our staff in terms of the detailed process. I can certainly bring that back to Council as needed.
That would be great. So I just wanted to, so they were actually reviewed by this committee, and this summary is talking about that then. It's not for work plan for this year. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hodge?
Just as chair of that committee, these minutes actually reflect just the year-end discussion. So it was just a review of where everything is, and in some cases it was just as simple. It's been referred back to council, or it's still on council's work plan for next year. So it was just basically going through the list of everything that PRC and our committee has looked at during the year, and so it was simply just in some cases just a one-sentence update on some of these things.
Okay, seeing none others. Question is the minutes of the Sports Advisory Council. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 8 pertains to the minutes of the Maillardville Commercial and Cultural Revitalization Advisory Committee meeting of Thursday, December 1st. Recommendation to receive.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, second by Councillor Hodge. Councillor Wilson.
We also wrapped up this committee. This was our last meeting, and had a great meeting. This was an extremely committed group, many of whom had been on this committee for 7, 8, 10 years. In one form or another, this committee was around for over 20 years. They made some recommendations at this final meeting, very passionate recommendations. And I move that these recommendations for receipt.
Okay, well, first we'll move the minute. We'll keep the minutes as receipt, and then we'll go recommendations. Any further discussion? Question on the floor is receipt of the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Mr. Clerk.
Just prior to the former chair moving the recommendations, I'll read them out for those in our viewing audiences. And there are a series of recommendations from the committee. The first is that, and I'll read them all, because I believe, as Councillor Wilson noted, he tends to move them as a block. That the Maillardville Commercial and Cultural Revitalization Advisory Committee acknowledges the value of the southeast corner of Laval Square and urges Council to protect the heritage value of those buildings when considering the future development of that site. 2, that as Council looks at new routing for the Brunette Exchange, consideration be given to options that move commuter traffic to other entry points and that Brunette Avenue be returned to a local road. 3, that Council consider the social, heritage, and economic impact on Maillardville from the new Brunette interchange and look for new opportunities to preserve and enhance the national heritage and cultural values of Maillardville. And that the Maillardville Commercial and Cultural Revitalization Advisory Committee expresses its wholehearted support for the Heritage Revitalization Agreement Program, acknowledges that it has been very successful to date, and encourages Council to continue to use it as a vital tool to preserve heritage buildings in the area. And finally, that at its wrap-up meeting, the Maillardville Commercial and Cultural Revitalization Advisory Committee thanks Council and staff for the significant support and the opportunities that have been provided to enhance Maillardville over the years. I have Councillor Wilson moving that.
Moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Discussion. Councillor Wilson, you further?
No, I'm all good, thanks.
No worries. Okay, we have those recommendations on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? And those are carried with our thanks to the committee for their long-standing work. I actually worked on that committee 10 years ago when I was still a city councillor, and some tremendous work. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Next item 9, pertains to development variance permit authorization to increase the maximum combined freestanding sign area at 1301 Lougheed Highway. Prior to reading the staff recommendation, I would invite the mayor to call for speakers.
Development variance permit that requires us to, we post and we invite people in the audience who might have some perspective to share with us. Are there any speakers to this item?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of council and audience members. My name is Sean, representative of Priority Permits, the appellant who's appealing this variance decision. I don't have a presentation or cookies or anything, but I thought I'd just talk a little bit about the proposal, the signage proposal.
Are there any other speakers?
Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't come prepared. Got through the snowstorm though. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about the signage proposal, the reasons why it doesn't comply with the Coquitlam bylaw, and some hardships and rationale about why we think it should be allowed. So the Choice Properties pylon sign is a multi-tenant sign, so it will be advertising multiple tenants that are in existence right now on the mall. And part of the reason we want a pylon sign so close to Lougheed Lougheed Highway is most of the main buildings are set back far enough from Lougheed Highway that they don't get adequate exposure, and we think for the businesses there, a pylon sign would really help with this, because as motorists zip by, they can see what stores and businesses are there. The reason we have a problem with the bylaw right now is Coquitlam bylaw allows for one ground sign, or sometimes two, depending on the frontage of the property, but it doesn't consider larger properties than those that are 30 meters or longer. So you could have one pylon sign at a business at a property with 30 meters of frontage, but then something 10 times as long as that will still be restricted by that cap of one pylon sign with 20 square meters of area. So at this location, there's already a tenant that is taking up all the signage area for a ground sign. That happens to be the A&W restaurant that's been there for a while. And through no fault of them, they've been there a long time. They have a standard sign that's used throughout Canada. But because this property is so large and so long, we feel it's only fair that other tenants get adequate exposure. So another pylon has been proposed. It's multi-tenant, so the tenant panels can be switched out as tenants change and things like that. But the tenants, they are pretty big tenants. Like it's the Staples, the dollar store, I think it's the Canadian Superstore. So big tenants, and they just don't get adequate exposure without that pylon sign. So because the property is so large, if one were to hypothetically divide that property into sort of 10 segments of 30 meters, because the property is about 300 meters or so almost, you could have hypothetically 10 pylon signs there. So we're not asking for that. We're just asking for one other pylon sign. It would meet all other constraints of the bylaw in terms of height, sign area, illumination. It would fit in with the character of the area. There's no residences across from the mall, so no one's going to be upset at nighttime with bright lights. And I think that's it. I welcome any questions about the pylon proposal. I'll do my best to answer them if there are any at this time. I sort of rushed through that, sorry. I didn't really.
Okay, so we're still in the mini public hearing portion of it. I've got Councillor Dennis Marsden with a question to the speaker.
Thank you. Just to clarify.
Just one additional sign. Exactly.
That it certainly, given the frontage, if it were broken down, there was eligible for more. So you're just suggesting
that. Yeah, that's the concession we're making right there. And it would meet all the regular setbacks of another pylon, as if it were another property, like subdivided. So it would be back from the original A&W pylon sign. It would meet all the height restrictions, the area restrictions, as if it were on another property.
Okay. And so question for staff. This property is unusual in that the frontage is quite significant. We've got a couple of other properties around, and I appreciate we're going to speak to those differently, but is there any intent to revisit this bylaw for larger properties?
Okay, we're in the public hearing here. If you want to address questions related to that, okay, and we'll get the questions.
It's related to this in terms of its...
I understand, but it's a further process, and I'm going to suggest we hold on to that for a little bit.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's good.
Okay. Actually, my fault, and I thank Councillor, your name and address for the record.
Oh, okay, so my name's Sean Creaney, and I work with priority permits, and we do permits all throughout the Lower Mainland.
Sean
Creaney.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Your address would be?
Oh, okay, so what is is it 102? No, sorry, 25 Begbie Street. We're in New Westminster.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Further? Nothing. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers to this item? Are there any other speakers to this item? Third and final time, are there any other speakers to this item? Declare that portion of it closed. Mr. Clerk.
I believe that staff recommendations that council approve the signing and sealing of the development variance permit, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute this permit.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Marsden, seconded by Councillor Hodge. Councillor Marsden.
Just again, that question to staff. We've got a couple of properties across the city that have larger frontages. So I imagine this could be a similar challenge, and 20 square meters on a property with, in this case, 300 meters of frontage would seem almost lost in the vast of the parking lot. So is there any discussion at that staff level to revisit this bylaw for larger frontages, or they just be all standalone one-offs that we'd review?
Good evening, Your Worship, and members of council. First, if I could, just to be clear, what the variance is being requested here is not the number of signs. I think, as Councillor Morrison has noted, along that frontage under the city sign bylaw, the maximum number of signs could be 2. Where they run into the bylaw limitations is around the sign area. That's the 20 square meters, which is over 200 square feet. So it's a really sizable area. And I know, in actually reviewing the report again this morning, I had a look at that, and just it made me pause and reflect on that. But I did remember that we had done a review of our sign bylaw not that long ago, I think within the last 2 years, particularly around commercial signs. I remember there was some refinements that were done. So, yeah, because it did trigger in my mind, well, larger frontages, more signs, larger area. I think it's something we could note for future reference. I think right now, the bylaw, the way it works, we had gone through a review. There had been consultation with businesses. My recommendation to council would be, let's work with what we've got. There's the DVP process to enable these sorts of applications to go forward. It makes good sense. You know, obviously with this one, staff are supporting what the property owner and the applicant have asked for. So I think that's the appropriate tact here.
Great. Thank you very much for clarifying that.
I had a similar kind of issue that I wanted to. So Sunwood Square, for example, some of these really large properties, if I'm not certain that they're actually one property, but if they're 2 properties or 3 properties, with kind of those invisible property lines that blend through parking lots, the public doesn't have a clue, and we would treat it completely differently. Even so, in other words, we would find several signs and more sign area perfectly acceptable along those streets, but for the accident of how the lot was originally laid out. Mr. McIntyre.
That's quite true, Your Worship. It just depends on how these parcels are, are parceled up along a commercial frontage like that. The one limitation, though, is around it would allow for 2 of these signs per frontage, but there has to be a minimum separation. So that sort of gives the effect of almost a little bit of shoulder room between the signs. It's almost like they're on separate lots, but. Obviously, with the larger properties, there is that opportunity. Whereas next door, you may have narrower frontages, and each one gets its own sign that meets the bylaws. So.
Okay, my last one is on the other side, the devil's advocate here. At some point, this property owner, I assume that that limit of sign area hasn't changed, hasn't been reduced since the ENW sign was installed. So the property owner at some point gave away all of his capacity to put up signage to one tenant, which is harder to sympathize with. Perhaps rhetorical question. Mr. McIntyre.
Yes. That's a good rhetorical question, Your Worship. I'm just trying to remember, and my memory doesn't serve me well enough. Had we reduced that total sign area in one of the sign bylaw revisions we've gone through, maybe we have not. I don't think in the last round, because I think it was some fairly modest tweaking, if I recall. That might have gone back further back in time when the sign area was reduced, if it was. On the other hand, a commercial property owner may want to take advantage of what the maximum the bylaw permits now, and they'll try their luck at a later day, depending on what the bylaw conditions are then.
Mm-hmm. No, fair enough. Councillor Zerillo.
What am I allowed to ask right now? Like, are we in the same format as a public hearing where I can't get any new information, or am I allowed?
No, you're allowed to ask anything you want.
Okay. Then my question is just about the consultation with the A&W. Was there any consultation about what impact a sign that close to their sign would be, or I guess I'm wondering why that location was chosen for the new proposed sign?
Mr. Fuji.
Through the chair to Councillor Cirillo, in terms of any consultation which the property owner may have had with his various tenants, perhaps the representative sign company can answer that question, because we weren't involved in any of those discussions, other than with our consultation is the DVP notice that went out, and which we had the one speaker from the sign company speaking this evening.
Okay, so I'm okay just to stay with staff then. So why this location then? Why was this location chosen?
Sorry, we ended that portion of it. My apologies. We'll,
But I could say through the DVP notification process, although I'm not sure I have the details with me, we typically that business would have received notice through our side of it as well and had an opportunity to speak to.
We don't have anything, right? So
yeah, we do.
No, we did not receive any.
Didn't get anything
it would have been provided to you on table if we did.
So for sure that business through our process received.
That would be my understanding. Normally we follow the same notification process for DVPs, public hearings, TUPs. It's property owners and tenants would receive notices.
Okay, so then my other question is about, I have some questions about whether this is going to open up other businesses around the area to want to come forward to ask for additional signs. Is there any concern from staff about that? Across the street, the car dealerships, that sort of stuff, to just get a little bit more exposure on Lougheed Highway?
Through the chair to Councillor Cirillo, I guess we'd have to really drill down in terms of the dimensions of the specific properties, I guess, on both sides of Lougheed Highway. What the sign bylaw currently says is that on a commercial lot with a I guess a significant frontage, you can have up to 2 freestanding signs on the lot. However, although you can have 2, the maximum sign area of the 2 signs is you're limited to the 22 square meters. So, we can drill down, should council so desire, and look at some of the properties across the way, but off the top of my head, I'm not aware of other sort of parcels which may have the same sort of dimensional conditions and other conditions of the subject property.
So the other thing I wrote down was where the Rickies and the Bouclair and stuff is on the other side. What is do we know what the dimensions of that sign is? They have a similar type of a situation where there's multiple businesses.
I don't have that information in front of me, but we'd be more than happy to provide that to the council members.
We're probably going to make a decision tonight, so it's okay. So can I just, through the chair, I'm sorry, so right now they're asking for a variance in the size of the second sign from what to what? What's the bylaw and what are they asking for?
Through the chair to Councillor Riddle, the maximum sign area that the sign bylaw allows on a piece of property is 20 square meters.
Right.
The bylaw does allow, in this particular instance, the owners to have 2 freestanding signs, but the combined sign area of the 2 freestanding signs is limited to 20 square meters. So what the applicant is asking for, essentially an additional 20 square meters.
Okay, thanks so much.
Just to refresh council's memory, there was we did a variance for the Bouclair property sign a number of years back, and it was only to allow them enough panel room to put a next right turn, some wayfinding mechanism to turn at IKEA in order to get in there when we made the road changes at the north end, or at the north end of the King Edward overpass. That's all I recall there. I believe that the sign itself was at the maximum, and that's why we had to do a variance to allow it one more panel. Mr. McIntyre.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. And that's correct. Good recall there. And I think that's an example of where the development variance permit process is an appropriate tool, because there was the signage for that site, and my recollection is a single large sign for that mixed tenant site that has been asked about. But because of the road network changes that came about with the King Edward overpass, there's a need for directional signage. So, that situation was evaluated, and the proposal was brought forth again through the DVP. But back to the subject property, I think we staff look at this, and you look at the length of the frontage. And going along there is the A&W, plus the restaurant is there. There's the service station. It has its own signage on the building. Past that is Staples, I believe. So it's in this stretch here where this proposed sign is to be located. It's an open frontage, if you will, and the commercial buildings are all well set back from that, and that's where the sign would be cited to advertise the existence of those commercial businesses.
Okay, I've got one more question myself. And it's a follow-up to my previous question. If the applicant had instead come to us with a proposal to subdivide the A&W off from the rest of the site, this variance permit wouldn't be required because they'd now be permitted to assign wherever they want along their frontage. And that's a nod. Yes, so this is there are several ways to go about this. The variance is simply a way that the public, it won't affect anybody. Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. Question is a development variance permit. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Item 10 pertains to zoning amendment bylaw number 4735 for proposed subdivision at 838 and 840 Cottonwood Avenue. Staff recommendations that council give first reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4735, and that bylaw number 4735 be referred to public hearing. And finally, that staff be instructed to complete the following item prior to council's consideration of fourth and final reading, should council ultimately grant second and third readings to the bylaw. A, registration of a restrictive covenant for building design, and B, submission of a subdivision plan to the satisfaction of the approving officer.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Towner. Councillor Asmundson.
Thank you. Interesting development. I thank the applicant for the covenant on restricted designs. Gave me that. But when I looked at this and we just went through this, all these are showing a single car garage, and through the staff that, we had our issue about council in the right direction about two-car garages and tandems on here. So I have concerns about this proposal with a single-car garage. When you look at the drawings that they've submitted, and I know these are only drawings to give an indication of what will look and fit in with the neighborhood, I understand that. But I do have concerns about if it's going to be a single garage and that could be in tandem parking, that then there should be a covenant or something for no secondary suite. These are some of the questions I would like to have answered when this comes back to public hearing. It's just a concern because we just had our meeting about public parking, secondary suites in houses, and we require 2 parking spaces. Now, I know they don't have to be both in a garage, but they should be 2 clear spaces side by side, I would hope, in that. So that's one of my concerns coming back. So that's just for public hearing when we get back to public hearing. Thank you.
The same kind of issue was the fact that no one builds single family without the capacity for a suite, and this one is almost seems to what they're designing is make it so that you can't make it a legal suite, and therefore it will always be an illegal suite or more than that. So I will ask that question when it comes to public hearing. As for the restrictive covenant on the design, I appreciate those kinds of elements because I do wonder why the element of a big concrete front fence ends up here. It's not something that has traditionally been in Coquitlam. I know there's lots of folks that have built elsewhere and are now importing that big front fence and sometimes the driveway gate that I don't believe really belongs well in Coquitlam, and yet I see it on proposals that are coming with a restrictive covenant tonight. My preference typically would be for folks that are coming into our community, have a look around and see what we have traditionally had in our community. And we haven't traditionally seen fences up in those kinds of big concrete things until about 5 years ago. And they're not really appreciated. They are more imposing than they need to be on the neighborhood. So I will leave it at that. Councillor Reid.
On page 2, you say that they have to provide a minimum of 3 on-site parking spaces. So can you please reflect that in a drawing at the time of public hearing? Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. The question is first reading. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 11 is an application for zoning amendment bylaw number 4734 for a proposed subdivision at 1380 Kingston Street. Staff recommendations that council give first reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4734. The bylaw number 4734 be referred to public hearing. And 3, that staff be instructed to complete the following item prior to council's consideration of fourth and final reading. Should council ultimately grant second and third readings to the bylaw, submission of a subdivision plan to the satisfaction of the approving officer.
Moved by Councillor Aspenson, second by Councillor Morrison. Councillor Hodge.
Yes, just a question, and if we don't have the answer tonight, certainly for public hearing. Looking at the walkway at the south side of the property, I'm just wondering how what the proposal is, how that's going to continue. It looks like it either stops at a SPIA or it stops at another property there, and I'm just wondering, because the report mentions connectivity through to the school behind.
Through the chair, Councillor Hodge, the plan or the intent is for that walkway to continue to the school site to the west, to provide connectivity to the school site from Kingston Street.
So it's cutting through the property which is marked 43. Is it going to angle through, or is it going to go around? Or is that another piece of private property that needs to be a right of way needs to be acquired on at a future date?
Again, through the chair to Councillor Hodge, to the property to the south, we already have an existing 3-meter walkway, and through the proposed subdivision, the applicant is providing an additional 1 meter for a total 4-meter wide walkway.
Right. So it looks like you're going to have the full width to the sort of the back, and then you'll have sort of a 1 meter piece that extends through for the time being then.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I could just make a comment. Thank you to supplement Mr. Fuji's comments. The two properties, and I guess on the west side of West Smiling Creek, you see two properties fronting Queenston. I think one of the properties Councillor Hodge is referring to. Those are private properties. They are not part of the school park development. But the goal is ultimately to protect the possibility of extending that walkway when something occurs on those two properties. So right now we're just extending it to the edge. I think you've made the right comment, Councillor Hodge. Ultimately, we want to extend it when those properties come forward with some form of development of some form.
And I'm assuming the same is taking place on the other side. It looks like there's a walkway or a pathway, but it doesn't go all the way. So this is just in anticipation of future connectivity as the properties subdivide.
That is exactly correct.
East side. Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Reid.
On the house that's being retained is being retained on the one next to the creek, I gather. There are no variances required on this subdivision?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, no, there aren't any variances being requested as part of this application. I would point out that, at face value, you look at the subdivision layout, and you go, gee, there's some of the lot width seem narrow, but under the definition of lot area within the zoning bylaw, it provides, some level of discretion for the approving officer to approve what we refer to in the bylaw as an irregular lot. So in this particular instance, the approving officer has taken the position that the lots being proposed are irregular, and a lot of that is driven by the desire of the owner to preserve the fairly large existing house on the property.
So he still has to, even though it's an irregular lot, he still has to deal with the same building envelope without having variances. Because if this came back with a bunch of variances, I'm not in support of it.
There aren't any, again, just to reiterate, there's no variance to be requested of such things such as, the setbacks and other bylaw requirements. They would all, including the larger, the house to be retained on the back lot, they would meet all the bylaw requirements.
They meet all the bylaw requirements?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions? First reading in a public hearing. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 12 pertains to zoning amendment bylaw number, or proposed zoning amendment bylaw number 4738 for properties at 621, 623, 625, 627, 629, and 631 Regan Avenue. Staff recommendations that council give first reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4738. The bylaw number 4738 be referred to public hearing, and that staff be instructed to complete the following two items prior to council's consideration of fourth and final reading should council ultimately grant second and third readings to this bylaw. And that is submission of a lot consolidation plan to the satisfaction of the approving officer, and B, registration of a restrictive covenant for the adaptable units and their corresponding parking stalls. I would also note there was a small error on the front page of the report, and as it's going to public hearing, we just wanted to have staff note the error and correct it for the public record.
So for the public record, under the preamble to the recommendation where the report talks about the requested zoning, there's a sort of a minor, a typo. The report refers to RT3, but in fact the applicant is requesting a rezoning to RM3 and not the RT3 as shown in the report, so it's RM3.
And of course, all the other documents reflect RM3, so it was just on the report.
That is correct.
Okay. Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know this is not specifically land use because one way or the other would be the same building, but this is described as a 6-story apartment building. I'm presuming, since we didn't specify rental, this is a condominium for sale apartment building, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Yes, has this developer done work in our city before?
Mr. McIntyre.
I don't believe so, Your Worship. The architect certainly has. They are well known to us, and they've done a number of projects, so they're quite familiar with the Coquitlam context and system, but I don't believe the developer has done projects here. If you wish, we can confirm that, and we can, if there is something different to my response, we could get that back in a public hearing brief.
Yeah, and by the public hearing brief, I hope that if it's a new developer in our city, that he has copies of our good neighbor policy, the no parking, all the other construction rules and regulations. Thank you.
Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. Building on Councillor O'Neill's point with regards to this appearing to be a strata complex, and that's perfectly fine. I note on page 3 near the bottom, it speaks to the top surface of the parkade being fully landscaped. And our experience has been that, of course, these membranes, when you landscape above a parkade, have a limited life to them. And so I'd be interested for the public hearing if you can have the proponents speak to anything they're going to recommend being put in the strata with regards to required monies being put away to address the membrane itself. Really, if this is a 15 to 20-year life in the membrane, you're going to see failure and water ingress into the parkade, and we just don't need to be seeing that. As well, on the parking, I note that this does appear to meet the parking requirements as they are today. So has there been any dialogue with regards to the direction that this council has said that we want to be going? I appreciate the bylaw isn't there now, but we've been talking about it for quite some time, that with regards to where we want to be going. This, maybe Mr. Fuji has a response to that.
Through the chair to Councilman, just to clarify the discussion that staff and council have had regarding the parking to date has been focused more on townhouse units, and so we haven't provided any sort of haven't had that more fulsome discussion or conversation on what we should do about parking for apartments, at least to date. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, this isn't something I normally do. I wasn't quite certain who the developer was, and so I looked up their website, and I want to point out that this is the featured project for this developer. It's on their website. It's called the Simon, 64 modern 1, 2, and 3 bedroom homes in West Coquitlam. So I'm going to support the first reading, but I'm going to perhaps make a call tomorrow morning and ask them to stop marketing the project until we have a public hearing. So anyway, this is about land use, not about behavior. Councillor O'Neill. Oops, Mr. McIntyre.
Your Worship, thanks for raising that. I made a note of your discovery on that point. Staff can spare you the phone call. We will follow up with the applicant and make it very, very clear just what's going on here.
Unless this is a different...
This is not a good start in Coquitlam if this is their first project.
Wrong numbers, but it says West Coquitlam just blocks from Evergreen Line, so I can't think of anything else we've approved for them. So,
if you're willing, Your Worship, staff will follow up on them.
Okay, just 1 second. Hi. I wonder if staff could go ask the applicant. This could be a different explanation. It could be a different project, but it seems unusual. This one doesn't have an address, but it's. Oh, I think we know where we're going here. We do recognize the name. Okay, good.
Your Worship, we're both spared a phone call tomorrow morning.
Enough.
Sorry for the confusion. That is marketing another project that has already gone through the approval process.
Perfect. Very good to hear. Hope it's successful. Any further discussion? Question is first reading in a public hearing. Oh, there's been no move. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Towner, second by Councillor Asmundson. Now, first reading in a public hearing. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. See you in a few weeks. Sorry for that confusion.
Item 13 pertains to the water shortage response plan proposed amendments for 2017. Staff recommendations that council directs staff to forward a copy of the report that's before you to the Commissioner of Metro Vancouver, along with a letter from the Mayor summarizing the city's feedback on the proposed amendments to the regional water shortage response plan.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, seconded by Councillor Towner. Are these, Councillor O'Neill, is that for this item?
Yes, thank you very much. I would ask that a paragraph or at least a sentence gets added to this letter, asking for perhaps some more detailed information about timeline for when we're going to look at increasing our capacity to store our water, so we don't have to go to these draconian water emergency measures that happen every year and have to start planning for them, given that we have so much rainfall and snowpack and everything like that, that so much of our water doesn't get stored. I really would like to know from Metro what exactly their plan is and what the timeline is, if they can let us and the public of Coquitlam know when they're going to deal with this problem, rather than these short-term cutback measures, actually deal with the supply problem instead. Can we do that? Add a line just asking for some clarification on that, or maybe a little, as they promote their water restrictions, they can also say this is, you know what, for the next 10 years we're going to have to bite the bullet on this, but you know what, we are planning to deepen the intake in Coquitlam River or Coquitlam Lake. We're thinking of increasing a dam here, tapping into this, something like that. I'd like to get that. So that's just my request, and hopefully council will agree to that. Thank you.
Okay. Council may remember I sent a link I think at the last meeting, might have been the one before that, related to a video in which the guy in charge of water at Metro Vancouver was referring to some of those timelines. They are long-term timelines. The deeper intake is in the decades from now time frame. So even if they started today, we would need to have significant conservation efforts through the next decade, unless we could figure out what to do with this snow.
Right. Now, so I do appreciate that we can't turn the tap on overnight on this one. But I think the public generally doesn't know about these long-term plans, and I think they should know. And if there's any way to speed them up, public might be interested in that too. Do we have to spend more money now, or is it?
You're looking for some damn answers.
I can't think of another pun, but thank you. Yes.
Got it.
Okay, can we ask that?
Don't hear an objection. Mr. Clerk.
I would just ask if any member of council has an objection to that request, and staff could if not, staff can weave that into the resulting letter.
Thank you.
I didn't hear any objection, and I made that any objection. Seeing none, okay, we will. That's what we're here for. Although I'm here with reservations. Councillor Hodge.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to comment to follow up on Councillor O'Neill's comments. What we really have is a delivery and a storage problem. And when you look out at the weather the last while and see the snow packing and adding up, that our challenge has been how do we store that for the summer months when it's going to be needed. And certainly your worship is correct that conservation is going to be needed in the interim, particularly in summers where we do have droughts. I just note on page 3 of the report where it talks about item 3, the last line, and this is about irrigation of planters and shrubs. It notes that the city's flower gardens, planters, shrubs, and trees are a major asset and are costly to replace. That reminds me of the issues that we did have 2 years ago with the cedar trees on the north section of Town Centre Park. We lost a significant number of trees. I remember bringing in pictures of the brown trees. They had to be removed. I don't know if we have a dollar figure, but certainly not being able to water or not watering those trees was costly. So this isn't just a statement. I think we have facts that we may want to back that up.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it probably underscores some other measures that we will need to be taking, not only in the communication side, but in our own watering irrigation. Mr. Alueva.
And I don't have the numbers with me, but I can certainly provide some information to council. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the letter, but unless council directs that. A big thrust of the work that engineering is doing, and we're certainly in that discussion and being supported in that, is, as council will see, is the development of water management plans that actually give us some flexibility. It's targets rather than specified prescriptive measures, which largely are very restrictive and don't give us that flexibility. So if council wishes, we can provide some information to council as an aside, or if council directs us, we can certainly include the kind of information to support our efforts that give kind of a large number of what the kind of losses we encountered because of the water restrictions 2 years ago.
I'd certainly be happy with leaving it to staff's discretion if they felt that would be helpful once they've done that research. But I'd certainly like to know the number, but I would leave it to staff whether they feel it should be included in the letter.
Okay, it was a suggestion, not a direction.
Okay, and I do have one follow-up question on the other item, which is on the golf courses. Again, what it comes down is reduction targets. And I can't recall, are golf courses, are they metered? The water does anybody know, are golf courses metered? Do they have their own supply? Or?
Through your worship, typically these kind of establishments would be metered. I can't confirm it right on the spot, but I would be surprised if it's not metered.
Because again, it talks about reduction targets and giving them the flexibility. I'd like to know how we measure that they are meeting those targets. Clearly, if they're using this many thousand cubic meters of water, I don't really care whether it's used in the morning, the afternoon, just as long as they have some way of measuring that they are meeting reduction targets. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Zerillo.
My comments were also related to the golf course. I note that the water for the schoolyard, civic, sports, and sand-based playing fields have a time restriction, but that the golf courses do not, that they can water in the middle of the day if they have to. So I just wonder if there's anything the city, like we as the city, can do to find out what they are doing as far as water collection tools and things like that, that maybe the golf courses are using. So I hadn't thought of what Councillor Hodge said about how are we monitoring their usage, but certainly do we know if they're collecting water and if they are doing some innovative and responsible things about conserving water. That's what I'd like to know.
Okay. Councillor Asmundson.
Thank you, through staff. I mean, I sat on the water committee a number of years ago for Metro Vancouver, and I always find it strange that they call the water shortage response, but it's really a transmission problem of the water. We don't have the pipes big enough to transmit the water we do, especially out to Surrey and Langley, and one of the reasons why we have water restrictions to the morning now is to reduce the peaks so there's enough pressure in the lines out in those areas for the fire service. So I find the problem with Metro Vancouver has delayed for a number of years the needed infrastructure on increasing their areas of where they can draw water off of. And I think they've left it to a situation that's pretty critical. And I think that's one of the issues. I think there, as Councillor O'Neill said, let's put the facts on the table publicly for the people, what the issues really are. Not so much of a shortage, but of a water transmission issue. And what are the costs to open up other areas? There's even, I was talked before with Mr. Steblin about people don't realize that Harrison Lake is 3 to 4 times more water than all of our 3 watersheds presently combined in that area for it to draw off water. So it's not a problem in the region of not having access to water or a shortage of water. It's a problem of accessing the supply of that water that's presently existing. And I think, once again, this year we're not going to have a problem with any shortages of water or drought this year. There's going to be cycles where this will come into effect. But I'd like to see Metro Vancouver have a better plan moving forward with concrete dates and times on to increase their capacity for water in a growing region. Thank you.
Did I just hear you declare war on the Fraser Valley Regional District by saying that Harrison Lake is in our region.
Negotiation, sir.
It's negotiation. There we go. Well, we do have one of the things. Of course, Harrison Lake is something that most regions would look at with envy. But in this region, we actually have 3 secure watersheds, 3 secure reservoirs that aren't used for other activities, that aren't used for recreation. You don't go boat on the reservoir as you do in most Canadian cities and most cities around the world, where a lot of recreational activities and other activities take place on the water reservoir that is also the drinking water. We don't have that. We have a distinct advantage in that regard here. We want to preserve that, and one of the ways to preserve that is to take full advantage of the real depth of Coquitlam Reservoir, and that's the medium-term strategy for Metro Vancouver. Short-term is conservation, medium-term is deepen that intake so that we can draw off more water during the hot summers and obviously spill off less during the winter. Long-term strategy would be to raise a dam on one of the other reservoirs. So those are all in the works, all in the plans. Each one of them is billions of dollars, massive amounts of investment, but obviously going to be necessary. And I thank Councillor O'Neill for questioning that. Any further discussion? The question is the Water Shortage Response Plan, proposed amendments 2017. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Adjournment has been moved by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. I want to thank staff again and congratulate them one more time on their wonderful success in achieving Bear Smart community status. That is a true a badge of honor. Well done, and I think it will serve our residents very well. Thank you. I will now open the floor to questions on tonight's agenda. Are there any audience members tonight? If you want to line up at the microphone, if you have any questions on any items on tonight's agenda. Here, any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any at all? Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for staying right to the end. Appreciate it.